that's been another huge positive transformation for me, because it was almost like you're in a little jail cell with what you can and can't do, what you can and can't eat. And, resistance training, provides you with, you just have a lot more flexibility. I don't know. I've learned a lot through it all. And I feel like I'm much more free with even though I make healthy choices, I'm much more free with my thoughts around food. It isn't a prison in my mind.
It's like you're doing it from this place of knowledge and empowerment versus fear. Welcome everybody to the PHW Podcast. I'm your host today, Dr. Kristen Marvin, and this is episode 10. It feels like a special number kind of, and it is special exciting. Because this is a really exciting podcast that we have today with our dear friend, Tricia Weimar. She is a dear friend of Prairie Health and Wellness. And today we're going to listen to your story. You have a really incredible story. And tie this into a sister company of sorts of Prairie Health called Transform Training. And so I think our listeners would just love to hear yourself, introduce yourself to us, and we'll just let it transition into hearing more of your story.
Sure.
So welcome.
Sure. Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm glad to be here. I do feel like I've spent a lot of time here, and I'm a great lover of Prairie Health.
Thank
and
you.
Just so grateful for the impact that you guys have had in my life.
Thank you.
So I'm Tricia Weimar, and I have been a patient at Prairie Health for about 12 years.
Amazing.
Something like that.
You were on ground zero with us, right?
I was at the beginning, and it has been, you guys have, I cannot, stress that enough, the importance that you guys have played in my life as someone who's gone through a chronic illness during that time, has just been, it's just been a gift, a true gift.
Thank you. So it's so good to hear. I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah.
Great.
Very, very pleased to be a patient and now a part of it. So
awesome. Well, take us back to the beginning. Where did this journey kind of start for you? And, where were you at? What was going on? Of course, whatever you're comfortable sharing with us.
Yes. So about I'd say 10 years ago, I, we're a mom of 4 boys.
Yeah.
So at the time they were, young and kind of preteen age.
Busy.
I'm a busy mom. I mean, that is slowed down, but at the time, very, very busy mom.
Yeah.
Just, keeping our house afloat and, noticing, that I was walking through sort of just some fatigue and, started having some brain fog and, just didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. But at that time, I know a lot of moms can understand just burning the candle at both ends in life. Yep. And you're kind of, putting everybody else in front of you, which is just the way it goes a lot.
Yeah.
But I, at the time had been, doing a lot of cardio and just, I love exercise. I've always loved fitness. I love nutrition, but I know now that I was under eating and over exercising. And I did start to notice that the cardio I was doing just wasn't really doing what it used to do. I mean, growing older, I was just, what I know now is that I was at the edge of perimenopause.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that my hormones were just starting to fluctuate and decline. And I knew that my husband, Jay, had, as he's mentioned on a previous podcast that he had started strength training as well. And he had just sort of been putting in some, I guess just hints. He's never one to push me in any way, but some hints about, this might be something good for you to try. And so I did. I took the leap and found a trainer. And like I said, I know now that I was in adrenal fatigue and I was, dealing with, some hormonal issues, but I I wasn't educated enough to know.
You didn't know.
I hadn't done
didn't
research
know.
about perimenopause. I didn't know what that meant either. So, and I, unfortunately, it was an issue, I had an issue with the trainer just maybe not being educated enough in taking the person as a whole. Looking at me individually. Any, health issues that I might have had at the time weren't really taken into account with my training. And, that person was doing the best that they could. They knew how. With the education that they had, and I appreciate that. But it wasn't really what I needed at the time. And I was going to this trainer for, to point me in the right direction. Give me what I needed, nutrition and exercise, and I wanted to get involved in strength training, but it was too much for my system. And over time, I did lose my period. I wasn't having a cycle. My hormones were in the tank because I had started to come to you guys for that. So started to see, major issues. Lots more brain fog. I was moody. I was starting to lose my hair. So
not moving in the right direction.
Not moving in the right direction. And that was a good while. And also maybe just developed some unhealthy eating habits, not eating enough. And that is when, about the time, this was a good year into the training, I realized that I had developed an autoimmune disease through Jeff's diagnosis, and it's called Graves' disease, thyroid autoimmune disease. That you know well.
Affects your thyroid.
And I did start losing a lot of weight due to that. That's one of the side effects. And then I also developed Graves' eye disease, which is a small percentage of people that, have Graves' disease develop that. So it was a major, life change.
Your body was like talking to you, huh?
Body
it was
knows
like, what we are doing right now is not, you know.
And that's just it, is the body that's exactly, the body's meant to share with you, hey, we need some help here. We need to stop what we're doing, redirect. And through you guys, I had amazing care and really was able to get things under control. It's not an overnight fix, for sure. But I also, one of the big things is that I learned to become a self-advocate. I learned to dig in deep and find out, what do I need to do to change this? What do I need to do to turn this around? And felt I was in such great hands at PHW. So also, this is about the time I ended up leaving that trainer, and I was able to hop on board with the guys that eventually started N1. Who Jay had just recently started training with. They were at a different gym at the time under a different name. This is before Kassem Hanson started N1. But he is somebody that I started training under. And another one of the N1 staff, Adam Miller, who's my current trainer now. And it was such an amazing thing. I thought I was going to have to stop resistance training altogether. I didn't feel good. I really felt horrible, actually. But the cool thing is that Kassem, who is brilliant, and Adam are both brilliant people and amazing trainers, knew that the best thing for me to do was to continue my resistance training. I just needed a super individualized plan and approach to meet me where I was, because there's always a place for resistance training with so many amazing, side effects and benefits to that. Even when you are really sick, it's something that you can utilize with that individual approach. So,
well, that's really encouraging to hear, because I bet a lot of our listeners, especially women, I bet they are just relating with you and probably feel very thankful that you're sharing these things.
Absolutely.
And, so maybe go into a little bit of how this was different and how this felt different, and then how you even navigated that of like being in a really, seemingly bad place of like, okay, I'm not feeling well. My body's giving me all these clues that like something's not right. But then, like you just said, still managing to like navigate resistance training through that.
Yeah. I did do a lot of research knowing that I needed to move my body.
Yeah.
I needed to, there are days that I didn't want to. I absolutely didn't want to. And, there's a fine line between listening to your body and moving. But I think that's one thing about resistance training that I love is that the mental health aspect of it is, when you're feeling down and you're not understanding why your body's doing what it's doing and you're just angry about it. The mental health aspect of it was hugely impactful for me at that time.
Awesome.
And, even if it was a day that I just got out and walked, it was everything to me to gain that rapport and trust and confidence back in this body that is so good. And it's just sending me messages of help. We need to make some changes.
Yes.
And so one thing that I love about it is that resistance training, exercise in general, is the confidence that you gain back with the body that is just trying to help you. And the body knows how to heal. But sometimes it's here where we're stuck in that dislike of where we are. I know you see it all the time, but just frustration and you're in the place that you're in. Yeah. But I do feel like that was something that that really changed for me. And having trainers that saw me as an individual and wanted to do everything they could to help me to see, no, this is just temporary, and getting you in a program that will turn your body around, all the benefits of gaining muscle mass in, anybody, but especially a woman who's dealing with autoimmunity, were amazing. Well, so helpful. Great.
Well, you're not alone in that. There's actually good research that shows that exercise, regular exercise, is more effective than antidepressants.
I believe it.
So I think it's great you brought up kind of that emotional, mental health aspect of it, because we certainly here in America have a culture of exercise. We do it to look a certain way instead of all these other amazing health benefits that we get from it. And, I'm sure when people think about the health benefits, which we'll definitely get into more, they probably think more so of things of like strength and maybe I reduce my injury risk or my fall risk, or maybe they even know it can help support your bone health. But I don't think a lot of people think about the emotional benefits that come from it.
Yes.
So, glad you brought it up. It's great.
Yeah. Great. And the farther along you get in it, resistance training and gaining muscle mass and strength, I mean, it just grows because you're thinking, my body is amazing. I can't believe I gained this much ability to pick up heavy things. I can lift a lot, And so that transformation from where I've been to now it's just a gift. It's a real gift.
Well, let's go back to that part a little bit, because I think that's what our listeners really want to hear more about, if you want to share this, of course. But just where you were, that place that you were coming from, and where I'm sure you did have moments, like you said, of like how am I going to do this? What's this going to look like? So give us, if you will, like some of those examples of working with your N1 coaches and how you guys even navigated that, because I know a lot of our listeners, especially women, that they're like, this is me. I have an autoimmune disease and I am feeling like, how do I do this? So what did that really look like for you?
Yeah. So in addition to the autoimmune disease, I did end up also having a thyroidectomy. So I had surgeries on my neck and on my eyes following the Graves' disease and Graves' eye disease. So there's a lot there. I was post thyroidectomy, so I was also working with Dr. Davis and these trainers to help optimize my new hormone, my thyroid hormone that I was trying to figure out and optimize. And
yeah, because when you have your thyroid removed, you have to be on medication.
Yeah.
And it's not as easy
it isn't
to figure it out, right? Especially right off the bat. So
Yeah.
that's a challenge.
These trainers, along with obviously Dr. Davis, they knew everything about where I was coming from. They are so well trained and that's part of what N1 does because we're all individuals. Everyone's coming from different backgrounds, but they were so knowledgeable in what I was walking through because of the coursework and the studying that they were perfect to help me, coming from where I was. So, we just took it day by day, and I would do weekly check-ins with them, and at this point it was Kassem that was helping me, but I was doing weekly check-ins with him. He wants to know, and still now that Adam Miller's my trainer, I do this to this day, weekly check-ins. What is my sleep like? What is my stress like this week? What are labs? Do you have current labs? So, what amount of thyroid hormone was I taking? What other hormones am I taking? I mean, they want to know everything. It's all important in how you build this training program for that perfect individual and exactly what they're going through to meet your needs. Again, what sort of stress I'm under. What is my energy like? What is my energy like when I'm exercising and then post-exercising? And how is my digestion? What is the food that I'm on right now? Am I eating those macros? Am I meeting that? Am I just not able to eat what they would like for me to? I mean, just a myriad of things that help them tailor make what my program needs to look like. So there were days and weeks that I was lifting weight. It wasn't what I lift now, but it was so helpful for me to get in there and do something.
Yeah.
Because of course, when you are hypothyroid, you just feel blah. Just feel you're dealing usually with weight gain. I was dealing with a lot of lymphatic, I didn't have a lot of lymphatic flow. Or it was very, just very tough because I was very waterlogged. And a lot of that is, again, hypothyroid.
Yeah.
So all of those things were any workout or anything that I would do, they tailor-made that for me. And it was so helpful. Otherwise, the desire is to just be at home and not get out. But I had the plan and it most definitely got me on the road to recovery.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing. And I can just hear our listeners thinking like they've probably never heard of a trainer that would ask those types of questions or even think about that kind of stuff.
And that's that's just the difference of what I didn't have before. And again, not to say that training that I did before was the sole reason that I ended up in autoimmunity. It was maybe the straw that broke the camel's back.
It was part of the process.
Maybe years of just some things that had built up in me, but it definitely, there's a big difference.
Yeah.
A huge night and day difference to how that was helpful for me.
Yeah.
And then, transformative for me.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. Can think of, I think it's a good point to make, right? Where it's like when I talk with our patients about autoimmune conditions, it's like, there's so many pieces to the puzzle. Yeah. And it really is a journey.
It's a whole thing.
Picture.
It
of
isn't.
things.
Yeah. It's not just one. So I would never explicitly blame that person.
Sure.
But it certainly is what, brought me to that point, I would say, that breaking point.
Well, and I think it's helpful for people to hear just like when we talk about how an N1 coach and what that training, really looks like. Because again, I think the stigma kind of is just with exercise. It's more so just like, okay, what do you want to look like?
Yeah.
How do we try to get you there?
Right.
Whether you feel good or not. Yeah. And sometimes too, that mentality of like no pain, no gain.
Right.
And it doesn't, I'm not really like hearing that when I talk to N1 coaches and even experiencing a little bit myself. It's like, okay, well, no, with exercise and moving our bodies, yes, we do need some stress, but it's like when I'm hearing you talk about the N1 trainers or coaches, what they're saying is like, let's give you like a balanced approach to that.
Yep.
And so what did some of your workouts look like in those early stages, just to help women understand? Because I think there's a lot of stigma there too. They think of weight training, resistance training of like, oh, I'm going to have to go to this gym with these big bulky guys, and I'm not doing that.
No. And I get that. And that's why I didn't want to do it myself before, I held off for so many years doing that. Yeah. I when I was in that stage, I really I did a lot of walking. They had me walking. I still walk a lot. Moving, any kind of movement outside is so great as well. But we do have a gym in our home, so I was able to, we're blessed to do that, but I was able to, do a lot of, some lighter weight things, but they also had me lifting some heavy things and building that resistance in my muscles and gaining some muscle. I mean, because there's so many benefits to lifting heavy things. And actually, I would say, I was surprised. I remember saying, I just don't think I should lift heavy things. And they said, I promise you, this is what you need to be doing right now. So it wasn't intimidating because they were walking with me, encouraging me, building me up. And I trust them. I trust them explicitly. So it was just a mix of different, and that's just it. It's always a variety, but there's always balance. And I would say even, just the cardio even just is not, there's not a lot of cardio. I would say it's not that we don't do cardio, but I would say it's so much less than what I had always done, because the weightlifting is cardio.
Yeah, right.
You're getting in there, you're picking up heavy things, your heart is,
starts pounding, it starts working, doesn't it?
So, that surprised me too, because I remember thinking, well, I'm not ever going to get back to the weight that I was because I'm not doing cardio. And that's a myth. You are doing cardio by lifting weights. And so,
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. And for our listeners that they may not be watching this video, they might just be listening. I'll just say, if you could see Tricia, she is beautiful and amazing. And, think you look strong. And
I am strong.
It's such that's another, I think, stigma to like that we can really encourage women through, is like hearing you say all these wonderful benefits and building muscle, and we don't look like a professional bodybuilder, right?
No, that was always something I had in my mind, because I would tell Jay, I am not going to do that because I don't want to look like muscle man walking down the street. But I just pictured Arnold Schwarzenegger and like when you say bodybuilding,
you're like, I can't. I've had women be like, I can't wear. I'm afraid I won't be able to wear jeans.
I know. No, if anything, they actually fit better. Things look better because you're building the muscle up and creating more. It is toning. You hear, I want to be toned. Yeah, and that actually is what you're doing. What happens? It is what happens of it. It's that's what makes your arms look toned. Yeah. And but I would say it is a great side benefit. But I think to get to the Arnold Schwarzenegger look, you're going to have to somehow get massive amounts of testosterone in your body.
We're using some exogenous substances at that point.
It's never going to happen unless, I don't know, something is, injected into you that you don't know. But that is not even possibly going to happen.
Yeah, going to happen. Well, I think one of the benefits you've mentioned, and I think our listeners would like to hear a little bit more, is just, I think, I know that one of the unique relationships between Transform Training and Prairie Health is that you're talking about these N1 coaches that you have, and people are probably like, well, do they have like a doctorate or like what? How would they know all these things? Which is great. Like you mentioned, they get this training. They do. So they really have a nice understanding of the whole body. And to tie that into, I think, the benefit of Prairie Health and Transform is this relationship where the N1 coaches, they come talk to us. They come talk to the providers.
Yep.
And I was a college athlete. Before that, I was an athlete most of my life. I've never seen that before. I've never, usually if you're working with a trainer of sorts, it's like, well, maybe ask your doctor this, or maybe they're like, you should have your doctor run blood work, but that's not common. Right. So what has that experience been like for you? And just, how would you share that with our listeners of how it sounds like obviously it's been really beneficial for you. But
I know. So I think that's something that, because we are friends with Dr. Davis, being able to walk through this journey, we just always thought, why isn't this done more often? Why aren't we seeing this marriage of, a movement center and a transform training alongside, providers? There needs to be crosstalk.
Right.
And for someone like me, who it was so beneficial in my transformation and my healing journey, it was not overnight.
Sure.
And there are other components that I use in healing as well, like through mind, body as well, mind, body, spirit. But to be able to offer this to people is something that we just thought would be a dream, and just so grateful to be able to see it happening between all of these entities. So it's really very exciting.
It's so cool. I love it.
And I bet for you as a trainer, for you as a provider, to be able to have that new crosstalk between for your patients, to see them, in a gym, and to be able to hear from the trainers, how they're progressing. And it's just another way to see them on the road to healing and
it feels so good because we, as we use this pillar system where we're talking to people about sleep and exercise or movement and, nutrition and stress and all these things. And so it feels like we have just so much more impact on our patients, where I can just like pop in over lunch, or, sometimes we message each other back and forth through a messaging system, but that I can have a conversation if I'm concerned about, one of our patients, and again, it just helps the N1 coach better understand like where somebody's coming from, what we're trying to maybe adjust and work on. It's a game changer for people. And so I think it's great.
I don't know. I don't know of another entity like this in the state of Kansas, for sure not in Wichita, but it's something to me that it just makes sense.
Yeah.
And the patient is to benefit. Right. I am living proof of that. Yeah. I am. And I just am so grateful that we get to offer that to anybody that wants to, that needs it.
That's great. Well, and I'm sure that probably helped you feel more confident in like what you were doing, like you said, where you were like, I don't know if I should be doing this. Right. And then you've got this team around you to like encourage you and really monitor you, and really care for you. Right. And keep an eye on these things. Right. And I think too, like some of what you're saying makes me think of, maybe you can even, if you want to, share if you've had any of these experiences along your journey where things were probably on an upward trajectory, and sometimes healing doesn't always just look like a straight line. Sometimes it can go like this. So if you want to share, have you experienced that along the way? And could you share? Because I'm sure that would really encourage people too.
For sure. It is certainly, healing is a roller coaster ride, And I think going into it knowing that, there will be ups and downs. In life, there are ups and downs.
It's life, right?
It is. But I know, just knowing that I had you guys in my corner, and my trainers in my corner. And, I think it's certainly something to understand. I know it's disappointing and it can be frustrating at times. But it's just awesome to see those ups. And then when there are days of, symptoms popping up again, or, there's a lab that comes that might not be just super favorable or whatever. I think it is truly just an understanding that, those days will be there, and it's okay. And we just get back on the saddle and, we just keep going, putting one foot in front of the other.
Right.
And I can 100% look back on my journey and see a lot of those days. But knowing that really the trajectory in the long haul is up, especially if you are incorporating some sort of resistance training, following the advice of your N1 trainer, and following the advice of your provider, your PHW provider. And that trajectory is upwards.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
But realistically, sure. Yeah. There are going to be days, but I always had a plan.
Yeah.
I always had a plan in place, and I knew that I was going upward in the long haul.
One concern I hear from some of my female patients is that, kind of along that mindset of just this upward trajectory, which of course that's ultimately the goal.
Yeah.
But if there are some setbacks,
Yeah.
or if there are times where they even appropriately needed to like adjust and maybe even pause for a second, what would you share maybe from your experience just to encourage people that, especially women that are just like, they almost let that keep them because they view it almost as like a failure to keep going.
Yeah, exactly. And we had days with my training, and they just say, you know what, let's just take a break. Let's take a week off. Let's take some time off to just, why don't you get outside and walk and just, stay moving. But we're going to get back on track, and let's just take a little breather, and savor life. I would say 100% this journey has taught me that life, there's so much more important than my illness, and I think there were many days when I was just living my identity was someone with this said autoimmune disease. That was my identity. And I think if I could go back in time and, I don't want to live in regret, but the lessons that I learned were, savor life, look around you, look at your family, look at your pet, your dog, your friends, get out and look at the trees around you and savor life. Savor that food that you think you can't eat because it has whatever in it, I would just say, see it as a gift because I certainly do. I see that experience as a gift.
Yeah.
There has been, my life has changed exponentially since prior to, being diagnosed with that. I am a different person, and in a good way. I see, I just see it as a gift. My relationships are deeper. My faith has grown. I am a self-advocate in my health. I have learned a lot, and I've self-taught a lot, and I've gained a new hobby, in that interim, and I've gained family and friends with my trainers and providers. So
hard to have regrets when you learn things like that.
It is.
I mean, that's great.
So,
That's
and
great.
I think,
It's a
and
great
for
mindset.
sure, I mean, it's been a huge, like I touched on before, the mind, body, spirit aspect. They're all connected, obviously.
Right.
And just looking at it from that perspective,
Yeah.
it might feel like you're in a loss. It might feel like tomorrow is something I just want to dread. But seeing it, and I don't want to sound sappy, but having been there, seeing it as something that you can learn from.
Yeah, definitely.
And just to look at life in a savoring way,
That's great.
living it.
I love it.
You know.
I love it. Well, since you did mention food for a second
Yeah.
in that, maybe share what your experience has been like with your N1 coaches.
Yeah.
Of just like, because I think early on you mentioned this, which is so common. A lot of times as women, we're conditioned to think, well, if our body's going to change or shift, we have to basically starve ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
So
I
share
sure
a little
did.
bit more of that and how that looks different with an
Yeah.
N1 coach.
For sure. I thought I knew a lot about food, and I was somebody that I tried prior to all of this, prior to autoimmunity and all of this. I tried a million different, whatever was healthy and the next thing to try. I've done it. I've tried it. on that quest to being the most, healthy.
Yeah.
And then dipping into that prior training experience, I experienced some orthorexic eating habits. And
Let's define that real quickly for our
let's do.
listeners. So
Yeah.
orthorexia really is kind of thought of as this obsession with healthy eating.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Where it's like you are rigid.
Yeah.
There
So
are
rigid.
no rules you're breaking. You are just like,
So
right?
rigid, so rigid. And even to the point where I feel like I almost developed food sensitivities simply from the mental aspect of,
Right.
of thinking in my mind, that is a bad food, and especially leaning into that autoimmune time where I was trying all these things and trying to, heal
Right.
and it became an obsession. Again, I wasn't just choosing to live, and so that was ruling me. So, and then with the prior trainer, I wasn't eating enough. I was not eating enough at all, and so thus, the body just does what it can do with the fuel that you give it, and so moving into the N1 training experience and then alongside Prairie Health, they very slowly were able they were able to add food.
That's great.
And over time, getting me back to the proper amount of calories that I'm supposed to eat. And then just learning how to lose the fear of food. We've talked a lot about that. I've talked a lot about that with Dr. Davis and with Jolene and with you and my N1 trainers, yes, eating real whole food, is just the key. And sure, there are going to be occasions when you want to eat pie.
We get pizza and we have pie at Thanksgiving and
living
birthdays.
life with abundance.
Yeah.
But choosing to just make healthy choices, just make healthy life choices. So that's been another huge positive transformation for me, because it was almost like you're in a little jail cell with what you can and can't do, what you can and can't eat. And, resistance training, provides you with, you just have a lot more flexibility with what you can eat, because you're not insulin sensitive. You're, it improves that and improves your level of, glucose, all the glucose that you can put in your body, because your muscles are just so covered with glucose receptors that they're willing to take it up. So I don't know. I've learned a lot through it all, and I feel like I'm much more free with even though I make healthy choices, I'm much more free with my thoughts around food. It isn't a prison in my mind.
It's like you're doing it from this place of knowledge and empowerment versus fear.
Totally.
And that, believe it or not, I mean, you will have a completely different physiologic response in your body when you look at those two differences.
It's the mind-body connection, and what you believe is it completely impacts the way the food is metabolized in your body, the way you digest it. But also having that resistance training on board. It loves for me to eat healthy food. My body welcomes it.
You feel good doing it.
I feel good. I feel healthy and confident and strong.
Are there any other areas of health that you feel like, this has made a positive impact for yourself?
Yeah, I for sure would say I'm excited as I age, and here I am, I'm 50 years old, so I'm stepping into perimenopause and menopause, and I'm feeling empowered. I'm excited that I'm not looking at this next stage of life where, I am aging. We're all aging.
We all are.
And I feel super empowered stepping into that phase of life, knowing that I'm doing everything that I can to stay healthy. My bone health is, the impact of resistance training on our bones, because we're lifting heavy things and we're pulling and pushing on our muscles and tendons and ligaments, and it just creates that, incredible bone health. I actually have the story of where I was in osteopenia through the autoimmunity and that previous time of
training,
not being healthy in my training. My bone health is through my DEXA scans. It has just improved dramatically.
That's amazing.
Through resistance training. So the proof is in the pudding.
Yes.
And I'm excited about aging. You know, I want to be in my 80s, you know, strength training. I want to be able to have balance and not being hunched over. And I want my spine to, you know, have that structure of the muscles around it. I want to have strong core and strong glutes to be able to balance myself and to be able to get up off the floor, you know, when I'm in my 80s and Lord willing, my 90s. I want to be there for my grandkids.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about aging. I didn't think I would say that before. I mean, I'm excited about wrinkles and all of that because I have a plan in place, you know, and
I love
it's exciting
that you
to be
say that
confident.
though, because that sometimes, you know, when I'm working with patients in the office and we get to that movement pillar, it is definitely at the top of the pillars where people are like, I'm not really doing that right now, or I just like don't want to, or I don't like it, or whatever the reason is. And, you know, that is definitely sometimes one of my just encouragement lines is like, well, let's even just think about as you age.
Yeah.
Because of course, like you said, it's not like we really enjoy necessarily, right? Like thinking about the aging process. But again, as you said, we are all aging.
We are.
And I don't think people fully grasp some of the very serious consequences that come from not prioritizing that part of your health. And, you know, I mean, not to be dramatic, but I mean, there is research that shows some pretty startling statistics that if you're over the age of 65 and you fall and you fracture your hip, your mortality rate. So the chance that you will die in that next year is scary.
It is.
Some of the stats have fluctuated, but it's fluctuated anywhere between 15 and 30%.
Wow.
Which that's, I mean, I don't like to motivate by fear necessarily, but it's the reality that we face. And so I think that is amazing how you said that. It's so great. It's a great mindset to have.
I just think it's something that it's not something that we need to fear that we're aging.
Right.
Because we have, you know, actual things we can do about it. And this is something so simple. You can start. It's never too late. It's never too late to start. I mean, I've seen incredible success stories online and stories of N1 clients, and it's incredible how people can turn their lives around in their 70s, in their late 70s, in their early 80s to just pick it up and do it. But we all know it's best to it's ideal if you could start earlier and have that background. Also, brain health. You know, the studies that show that, you know, when you're doing resistance training and you're choosing healthy food choices and again, the mental part of it too, just choosing to live and savor life, all of those things create better brain health. I mean, there's so many scientific studies about just the resistance training alone and cognitive functioning along with better metabolic health, and they're just hand in hand. So, I mean, and we've all had family members that we sadly watched that, you know, didn't have that education or didn't know any different. And, you know, just, you know, hunching and shuffling and, you know, falling, just breaking hips.
Risk, right?
It's really something, we have the knowledge, we know what we can do about it. So that's just super empowering, and that it isn't ever too late to start. So that's great. And we see people, and Transform Training sees all ages. You know, really all ages from teens to, you know, 90s. However old you are.
However old you can
You're
be,
welcome.
Right? Yeah, that's
so,
right.
Yeah.
I have sent a couple of my patients who are well into their 70s, and one of the main reasons we started was because osteoporosis.
Right.
And so again, it was like, I just gave that encouragement where it's like you're saying, it's never too late.
Nope, it
and
isn't.
because, you know, the N1 coaches know how to tailor it to the individual,
Exactly.
the feedback I get is so fun.
Yeah.
Because
and it is a fun activity. I always also think you're making new friends. You're getting to the gym.
Social aspect
The
of
social
it.
aspect. I mean, not that the gym is a crowded place, because it's not. We keep our numbers fairly low for everybody to have appropriate amount of
But even
space.
the one-on-one.
The one-on-one.
Even the one-on-one is great.
It's so great, for
from a social aspect.
a social aspect. And I think it just gives you something else to look forward to doing.
That's right.
So I'm super excited about this phase of life, and we will be empty nesters somewhat soon. So it gives you, I'm very confident about moving forward with where I am in my age and that. So yeah, it's exciting.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk one more benefit I don't think we've mentioned yet, that comes with training and movement, right? Is sleep, how that can impact sleep, right?
Yes,
because so many people struggle with sleep. So what's that experience been like for you? And I mean, hopefully it's been a positive one. For most people it is.
It has, absolutely. Yeah, I would say I did struggle a lot with sleep prior to meeting my N1 trainers. And that was something I remember speaking with Dr. Davis about ad nauseum when I was, first, walking through the autoimmunity. My hormones were, again, body speaking to you. And that's a way that the body, shouts out. It is usually hormonal. And I was waking up all hours of the night. And then with Graves' disease, your heart races. And it was rough. And that was huge for me to get in a training program that someone would, guide me into better hormones, better, just body regulation in general. And then of course, when you're exercising, you're working those muscles, you're creating, your
body wants to rest.
A good kind of exhaustion, really good, where the body's like, oh, let's go take a break now. And so I eventually started seeing over time, peaks and valleys, but over time started seeing, I fell asleep with no issues whatsoever, and I stayed asleep. But I do still, that's part of my weekly check-in with my N1 trainer, is that he asks me every week, what is going on with your sleep? Are you waking up at night? Are you having trouble falling asleep? How many times are you waking up at night? Why? Are you up for long periods? So he's wanting to get to the bottom and dig. And so that crosstalk with my PHW provider, my N1 trainer doesn't run labs or anything like that, but, we're able to share and talk. And so it gets to the bottom of what's happening with me, and I'm not waiting around for months wondering. So it's just, the experience as a patient is so much nicer, because I have all these people in my corner, and they're talking and they're figuring it out. We're all figuring it out together.
You're all working to figure it out together. Would you guys ever adjust your workouts based on like how you were sleeping, or even with some of the perimenopause and menopause symptoms of like what you were experiencing with some of those fluctuations that sometimes just happen as part of that process? So what would that look like?
Absolutely. We would, sometimes I would, I mentioned walking a lot. If I'm having, the perimenopause symptoms of maybe estrogen dominance or, whatever that is, because in perimenopause, it's a variant. Every
the ovaries at the end are kind of like, what are we going to do right now?
Are we going to spit out a whole lot of estrogen?
And then you get nothing.
Yes. So you never know, week to week.
That's right.
And so again, this phase of life that I've been walking in, especially these last 5 years, even past healing the chronic illness, I immediately hit, the perimenopause roller coaster. So, my N1 trainer has been there with my provider, and, I would say a lot of my training it's based week to week or block to block. And sometimes he'll say, all right, if you're feeling a lot of estrogen dominance right now, let's just get out and walk more. Let's have, we're not going to go to failure this week with all of your sets. We're just going to go to failure with maybe one set. And then the rest, I want you to have your, maybe go that exertion level let's just hit a 6, you know, so we're not pushing, we're just going to be kinder on the body this week, you know. That's just a major difference than what I experienced with my other trainers. So I really appreciate that.
I think a lot of women experience that, right? And I think a lot of women now, more so than ever, are probably learning more about their hormones, and even before perimenopause and menopause. So just for a premenopausal woman, our hormones naturally fluctuate throughout the cycle too. Right. And so I think that's another nice thing about the N1 coaches is they're even aware of that. Like like you're saying, how are you feeling?
Yeah. They know what cycle day I'm on. I'm checking in, which, you know, feels a little TMI. But honestly, I am grateful because I know that I'm not doing anything that's going to harm my body. I'm not going to put myself in that position again where my adrenals are, you know, shot. And that's not what we want. We want somebody that is going to be watching, you know, everything. And that's why I know that might seem a little odd to share all of that information with somebody, but how would you know how would your trainer know what to put you in? It's actually you're helping your trainer to be a better trainer and to be more educated on how to fit, you know, your training stimulus for you. So, and it is week to week, but I wouldn't want it any other way. I wouldn't want to be going in there clueless. And that's what I love about it is there are no clueless days. I have my path. I have my workout. I know what I'm supposed to do and I don't even have to think about it. It's really nice. So,
that's great. Well, and hopefully our patients, while I guess I should call him our original Transform Training N1 coach, Kirk, is great. He's a great listener.
He's incredible.
You know, several of my women patients who have worked with Kirk just come back and say like I said, he's a good listener. He's, you know, I'm making me feel comfortable with certain things I'm doing. And I think, but that also too can highlight the excitement of our new N1 coaches, Kristen and Carissa.
We're so excited about them.
You know, understandably so. I think as women, sometimes we just feel more comfortable. And especially maybe, you know, I can hear some of our women listeners being like, I have to talk to my trainer about my period or my hormones. But you did such a great job of, you know, explaining why that's so important. And why then obviously, you know, with the education that the coaches have can help us to like feel good about it and feel like intentional, right?
Yes, they're so professional. They're the most professional trainers. And I mean, part of their training, I mean, they take 3 courses. They're watching almost 300 hours of classes. They are... you know, they have over 60 modules they're going through. I mean, it is exhaustive. And so there's not anything that they're missing, you know, so, and oftentimes the trainers have health backgrounds already, you know, so it's only, you know, benefiting, you know, the client truly. So I know it might feel a little odd, but it is truly a benefit to you. And it's, you know, they become great friends.
It's great.
It's really sweet.
Great.
So,
well, is there anything else that you can think of that maybe you want to share, or just any words of encouragement, especially for our listeners who, you know, maybe this is, you know, I'm sure for a lot of them, actually, this has been so helpful for them to hear and probably just pushing them that much farther to doing, you know, some kind of movement, even just at that, or maybe even that where they're like, I want to come check Transform Training out.
Yes. I mean, I would just say, you know, again, I want to harp on it. It's never too late.
That's right.
You know, no regrets. We are, you know, just moving forward. I think, you know, choosing to move and intimidating gyms. That's not our bag.
Right.
We are kicking intimidation to the curb. And
I love it. We're putting that on a shirt, right?
yes, we need to have it in a transform training shirt.
That's right.
No intimidation, and just we want to educate people. I think there's just our bodies are incredible creations, and we want to use it to the best of its ability, and just enjoy what we have, this time on earth that we have. So I'm just super excited about the crosstalk between PHW and Transform, and what that means for Wichita, and that we have that here. And I would just encourage anybody, please just check it out, and come meet the trainers and look at the gym. And I want people to feel at ease in there, and I want people to feel like, again, it's you're learning something new. It might feel new, and you might be in a position where you're in a chronic illness, but please come try. Just come try. Give that gift to your body to start something new, and gain that confidence that your body is working for you and not against you.
I love it. On that note, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah,
because
it's such a pleasure.
That's the kind of stuff that is transformational,
It
right?
is, it is.
Changes lives, and it helps people feel like they're not alone. And it helps people feel like, hey, maybe I can do this too.
They can.
And that's awesome. So
They
thank
can.
you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you
so welcome. It's my pleasure.
And thank you to everybody for listening to our podcast. Don't forget to check out our other podcasts that we recorded here too, on your favorite, podcast streaming device. And speaking of meeting the trainers, don't forget that we will be having a Transform Training open house that happens to be taking place on January 16th. It's a Thursday evening from 5 to 7 p.m. And it is over here at Movement by Prairie Hill. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.